Okay, hello everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Cancer Conquering Community. And we have a very, very special guest, and her name is Indira Ahluwalia. And I believe I said that right, did I?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Mm.
And she's an esteemed author and a cancer survivor, and we are so lucky and fortunate to have her with us today to share her incredible knowledge. And so, without further ado, Indira, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and let's get into a great conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mark. I want to start with gratitude. Um, I'm grateful for each of us coming together today and those who will listen. Um, we come together beyond our own designs. And when we come together, there is magic we create because we learn and grow with each other. I felt that magic with Mark. Uh, I would say maybe 2+ years, 3+ years ago is when we connected on LinkedIn, as somebody had said earlier. And in Mark, I found somebody who knew this journey so intimately, but so powerfully. He gave me insights and resonance that truly made me feel like I was part of good. It was the positivity that propelled me to continue to want to engage with Mark because it was so deeply meaningful to me. So, Mark, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
also thank you. I also want to thank the higher good that exists, whatever we call it, whether we call it a God or an energy or spirit or faith or our neighbor, uh, that has sustained each of us to this point. I want to thank the caregivers in this group because I know I don't make it easy. And I also know that it's harder for me to be there for people when they suffer than to go through stuff myself. So I applaud your courage. Um, I am very grateful to be alive. And it's been a 18-year journey. And I started with stage 4 breast cancer in and bone metastases across my skeleton. And what I want to talk about and really want to make it as interactive as you allow are three things. One is a decision or the decision we make to live. Okay? We are confronted with that in different ways, be it cancer or other situations. But cancer calls it out like that. So I want to talk about the decision, and I want to do a reading that sort of captures how that decision happened for me. I then want to talk about second chances. And then, thirdly, something that I've been thinking about and finding, trying to develop understanding about is that balance between faith and control. So that's, if that's okay, I can proceed on that basis then. And with your permission, can I do a reading then? Wonderful. So this is the book, and it's a book that I wrote really for my children who were 5 and 3 when I started this journey. They, more than anybody, have seen every day and every night. They know what I've gone through, but they don't really know what they've gone through. So I'm hoping and praying that when they're older, they are, with God's grace, 23 and 21 today. But when they're even older and are willing to explore what they went through, this book can be their guide. So with that, I didn't think they would actually listen to anything I had to say unless I made it nice and formal and, bound together book that makes it easy to pick off the shelf one day. So here we go. And forgive my voice, I'm just recovering from something. Right. There are 12 steps at the end of the book that speak about the lessons I've learned. This is step 4. It's called the decision. As the process of diagnosis unfolded, and my life hung in limbo between what seemed like life and a very painful death, something within me built strength and allowed me to keep putting one foot in front of the other. After my first PET CT scan and the impromptu meeting with Dr. Meza, when I learned that the cancer had spread through my skeleton, I drove home alone with Vaheguru. In Sikhism, we call God Vaheguru. With thoughts and emotions on hold, the familiar streets whizzed past me as I drove. I pulled into my driveway, walked out of my car, and turned my key in the lock to open my front door. I thought I was living in an alternate reality. This was no longer my world, my existence. I was breathing, but not taking in breaths. The stairs up from the first level to the main level didn't feel familiar. There was stillness in my home. As I came up the last steps to the main level, where my home represented my children, and looked around, I saw my life. I saw Armand's little yellow magnetic John Deere trucks lining the floor from where he'd left them before he went to school that morning. I saw piles of dolls, cuddly toys, and teacups where Megan had stacked the remnants of her last tea party. I started to recognize the room, my home. I started to breathe. I started to take back my life. I knew that stillness would become a reality if I stopped breathing. I walked into the kitchen and instinctively started washing the breakfast dishes. I vigorously soaped and scrubbed the dishes. I took on living. On some level, the decision had now been made. There was no proclamation, nor did I say it out loud or even to myself. It was too early for me to know what that decision, made on a subconscious level, even meant, or that I had even made it. The decision needed time to ferment. Slowly, it started to make room in my body and take shape. My emotions took much longer to follow. Before hope came to me, I had already made the decision. My children were then 5 and 3. They still needed me, and I was not going to walk away from them, even if God came to get me. My marriage was crumbling, and I could finally begin to admit that. I couldn't rely on their father to be both parents for them. My maternal family had suffered enough. My father had lived with cancer since I was 12. I was not going to die on their watch. I was not going to die. That was just it. It wasn't an option. It wasn't bravado. It was much more than ego. It was a fundamental decision that I made that reverberated in every cell of my being. It rose from the depths of my spirit and into my consciousness. It got grounded in the reality I chose. Every day, as I did my morning prayers, I thanked Vaheguruji, my God, for today and asked for one more day. It's a powerful reminder for me when I read this, because it encapsulates grace, but it also brings up consciousness and it brings up this innate desire to live. And I think we have to decide whether we choose life. And one of the things that I've understood about life, unfortunately, I understood this when I was very young, excuse me. Life is mostly, aiming for neutral is good, right? The highs and the lows are temporary. So if we keep our focus on the path ahead, the challenges will come as they do, but they'll also go. But it's our choice whether we want to keep moving forward. Nobody has said cancer is easy, nor is any other part of life. For some reason, we still want to live. And I think that when we choose to live, it's a choice that says there must be more I can give. There must be more that I can do. And so I pray every day that either in my being or in my doing, I can be of service. I thought I will take a pause and see how the decision has been sitting with each of you. And
I want to say something here, and you are an incredible writer, Indira. I mean, the words that you just said, I mean, I've written several things, and the introspection, and you took us into your footsteps as you walked into your house, and to be able to do that's special. I mean, it's really, really fantastic. So thank you for sharing that with us. It was like amazing, absolutely amazing. And go ahead. I just wanted to say that
thank
because
you.
it just kept going through my head. I was like, wow, that is
Yeah.
outstanding writing.
But Mark, this is the community you've created, right? Where whether it's in words or in spirit or in energy, we're walking with each other. And honestly, I feel I couldn't write that book today. I couldn't have written it before I wrote it. It was when spirit wrote it. That's what moved. I did go to a convent, I have to say. I had very strong uh, Irish Catholic nuns who would hold up a stick if you didn't do your Shakespeare properly. But all of your lessons come in handy.
Do you want to say something, Georges?
Yeah, amazing. Your writing,
Thank you.
and it is very, very important what you said. One thing is writing, one thing is being the channel from the spirit. And that's what happened to me as well. I did have 5 children, young children at the moment. And but you talked about the decision, and we all are different. Last week we talked, a few of us, Carrie, I think it was Jamie and Mark, about the different ways that we approach this. You asked for us, what was the turning point and the decision. For me, it was 80 years into fighting and 8 surgeries at that time already, one in the brain, one of four. But with the leap of faith, I made the decision. My decision was to take the holistic health route and stop traditional treatments. Against my wife, who was in the medical world, family, there, one surgeon, and then Catholic. My daughters, my only daughter of 5, godparents also medical MDs, and they thought I was crazy, but I knew it was not working for me. So that was my decision. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, would anybody else like to share, or I can move to the next part? I'm happy to go with the flow.
Go ahead, Indira.
Okay, thank you. So in the vein of life continuing to give, and this is something, Neil, that you and I haven't talked about, but um, I got, and I was debating whether I wanted to use this word again today, but I will. I got the gift of cancer again in November, and I'll tell you why it was a gift, because I haven't spoken about this publicly yet. I've obviously, my inner circle has been incredibly supportive, but it's one of those gifts because I found it so early. I found the original cancer at stage 4, and the gift was life. This was a little innocent cyst that I'd been tracking in my left breast, the opposite side, from where I had had my original cancer. I'd had a bilateral mastectomy in 2009. I'd pushed for that to increase improve my odds. And there was this benign cyst that, for some reason, I was tracking even against the advice of doctors. And it suddenly felt different. And I had even gone in August to have it checked, and the particular nurse practitioner, I'd never reached the level of a doctor, said no, there was nothing there. And being an 18-year cancer veteran, if I may say, I was still intimidated in being able to say, no, you're wrong. I know what I know. And I think that was one of the gifts, because when I pushed it, they found it. And it's been an interesting journey. God willing, I'm on the other side of this cancer. And it was stage 1. And that's why I say it was a gift, right? Because had I not gotten the gift when I got it, on a reconstructed breast, with labs looking good, CAT scans being stable, who knows when I would have caught it. But it's a question of second chances, right? So the second chance is it really a second chance of getting cancer again, or is it a second chance of choosing life again? And that was powerful for me. It's a little bit harder for those who have gone through it more than once, and my father did multiple times. Your body is more tired, you're older, but you have incredible reserves. You know how. And the decision is still something you have to make. I have asked God for life every day in present time to fulfill my journey every day since this came. And I think that's important because, I don't believe there are accidents. I believe that I was meant to find it when I did. I was meant to stand up for myself. I was meant to be part of this process of growth. And in this process of growth, I have had to learn to trust my body again. I have had to learn to trust the medical professionals again. I have learned to say, yes, mistakes happen. Yes, you can stumble. Yes, there is this journey where there will continue to be ups and downs, no matter how powerful your faith. But at the end of the day, if I've been given the second chance, there must be something I've got to do. And I'm praying that it's not too hard, God. But but it's that's the other thing that I'm learning, you know. The first time around, I was in a frenzy of doing. I grew my company. It we ended up working in 90 countries as a small business. We worked towards the goals of equality and accountability. I started organizations, I joined boards, my kids did every sport, I got divorced, I changed houses. There was activity. And before this cycle came, and I was just telling Mark earlier, my body said rest. I was so tired, I had so much activity. Something said rest. It never occurred to me that I was taxing my body so much and that I was bringing on trauma because I was so busy doing, I couldn't be. So the goal is now to be and let what comes guide me rather than control. Does that make sense? Okay. So the other part of what I wanted to talk about was faith and control. So over the last week that I've been thinking about this more actively, is it faith versus control? Or is it faith and control? So what is faith? For me, faith is absolute. It's like being pregnant. You either are or you're not. If you have doubt, then you don't have faith. You can't. Right? If you have doubt, you're saying, you know what, my faith is not enough. Whether that faith is in your body, whether that faith is in your spirit, whether that's faith that there's some goodness or energy or positivity that's connecting us all. Now, hate, anger, doubt, fear, self-blame are much easier emotions that arise within us. It keeps us in that fight place, keeps us in our head rather than in our soul. But I'm not saying you can get rid of fear. I am only asking we try to find room for hope. And hope is intensely powerful. It grows. And if you create that space for hope, it grows so much that you can surrender to faith. And that process is something I am trying to grow within. I'm also a Virgo. So, you know, that means that I like to control everything and I like to have a plan and, you know, how many forks are we going to need for this party? It's down to that detail, right? So letting go is hard for me. But control has also served me, right? The control is sometimes can be interpreted as process. My dad would say, you know, when somebody close to you passes, humans have put a lot of process in place to deal with that major thing so we can get through it step by step. The process we have to go through when we have cancer or we're serving people with cancer is creating a medical infrastructure. First opinion, second opinion, specialist opinion, pushing the nurse navigator to get us an appointment, figuring out how to make that report stat so we can get the information in 48 hours instead of 3 weeks, getting a doctor to give you 2 minutes of concentrated time, figuring out where to get the discs, how to store this information, how to connect your doctors, how to figure out meals, who's going to do the laundry, who's going to take the kids to school. Who's going to run that business? How are we going to keep everybody's spirits up around us? How much can we share? All of that is process that we take charge of. We also take on creating tools. This book was a journey. It was a tool that was a cathartic tool for me as well. Meditation, acupuncture, diet, yoga, support systems, laughter. And so I can't say that the process or the tools or the infrastructure aren't useful. They're incredibly important. They're useful. So it's faith and control. It's not managing faith, though, because that's a negotiation where you're saying, I'll do better for me. That's again going to that interpretation of, I don't have full faith. Everything that happens will be well. And I will have the capacity and the tools within me to continue on in neutral to move forward. So it's when I think we get into conflict is when the self, or which is another word for control, exerts itself or asserts itself over faith. And so what I am trying to balance as this type A Virgo with full faith in Vaheguru is both. I will do my part. I mean, I still like dessert, right? I mean, I'm not giving up all sugar. Yeah, but maybe I can cut back on some of the food I eat in a way that's healthier for me. I'll do my part. But I'll also believe and truly believe that God intends for me to be here in this moment. I'm grateful. Thank you.
I think the words that you have said are so powerful, and there's so much meaning behind what you said. And we really appreciate your reflections. And what I kept thinking was, so many people, they get up and they speak from the pedestal and speak down. And what was so impressive about what you had to say is, you said that you were basically saying, I'm human, and I'm vulnerable, and I have my own issues, and I think we can all appreciate that because we are all in the same boat. We're all in this together. And I always say that when people come into this room, we come in as individuals, but together we form a collective and we become stronger because of that connection. And what I highly suggest all the time is to connect with the people here, because there are some really phenomenal people here, and that's part of the experience is meeting new people from different. I mean, we have people from different parts of the world. We have Canada and Cambodia and Costa Rica, and we have people from the United States, and we will probably have somebody coming in from Africa. She always comes late.
Mhm.
And there are people that are from Europe and Australia and just all over. And yet, despite where we live, we're all connected together. And that's the beautiful thing. um, I just really appreciate your perspective and what you had to share with us. and let's open it up to anybody who wants to input. Uh, and if you have something else to input as well, Indira, you're more than welcome. So let's uh, open up things. If you have something to say, you could just raise your hand, um, and just go ahead and say whatever you like to.
I
Chip?
might chime in just to let somebody else gather their thoughts. Um, I was watching everyone's faces, and we kind of have a common denominator here, or a mutual foe that brings us together. And as I was watching as she made each of the points, the courage to make one step into the house, that how much washing the dishes was welcome and a ray of hope. I was watching the heads bob and the people reliving the corresponding moments in their story, whether caregiver or the person who is afflicted, those moments, and then the people who are super important, highly respected to you, that saw it the exact opposite way, and yet you had to make your choice, and then hopefully everyone gathered around behind you and with you to make that work. Those were some of the things. Um, a tiny little bit of insight came to me when she said she built her company to 90 countries while in this fight. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a financial component to these kind of illnesses. And so you have to mount some sort of a fight in that world as well. And that's pretty gutsy maneuvering, with all the other details that she brought up. This is just a tiny bit about me. Um, I was trained to be a special forces team leader, but I was never called into action. I was always preparing to do something I did not want to do. Here, I get to do something I always hoped I could do, which is to step in and help people. That's it.
Thank you, Chip. And Chip, uh, would you like to share a little bit about Marcy's story and your role in how that played out?
Well, it could be, the same story I heard repeatedly as we went from each square. And I was thinking about, uh, 13 years ago and there was a surgeon involved who we're very grateful for, did a great job, I think. But she said, if you don't do those follow-up treatments, you have wasted my surgery. Her dad and her brother came and begged her to do the standard of care. And we finally um, began to call it desperate care, because we thought you wouldn't do it unless you were desperate. And so we held it in reserve instead of using that first. And that proved to be an important factor. Uh, and Indira spoke about time at one point in her presentation when she was reclaiming her life and the time components. Uh, she said that she saw her life in an unfamiliar new light and had to reclaim it from there. And the time component of that. One of the tricks psychologically that was really, really important for us was when we decided not to remake the decision over and over again every hour or half hour and constantly question ourselves, but to say, okay, one thing we respect, what do we get for our, very expensive medical research? Fantastic diagnostics, right? So we thought, okay, we'll for sure use that, and we don't want to lose that. So we don't want to throw things back in the specialist faces, for sure. We'll hold that in reserve, and we'll do every right thing we know all at once until the next set of numbers come in. And hopefully that will show that we are on the right track. And if so, we'll continue. If not, we'll have to reevaluate and possibly consider some of the things that are more desperate that we held in reserve. So we thought not the standard of care, but desperate care. And so if you get desperate enough, then you turn to the desperate care. But until then, do the very best you can to continue on the path you've chosen. But those are just, I got lots of stuff that, she was playing, uh, playing music in my mind, writing her book. Those are just some of the thoughts that came to me, and faith and hope is a power source, a controlling personality. I'm married to one of those. Everything had to be perfect until it just couldn't be. Had to let some of that go. Um, yeah. Making the best use of 2 minutes with the doctor. If you walk in there and you don't have your head on straight, those 2 minutes are going to go by and you're going to walk out saying, I didn't ask or say a single thing that I intended to. That's where, and I'm looking at the people that are with us here, I bet you that people come to you to be an interpreter for them when they go to the doctor. They either tell you or want to take you with them, somebody to understand, what's happening and be able to make decisions along with that. I loved it when she said, we create or discover tools along the way. And she listed a bunch of them. And those are just some of the thoughts, but it's obviously she's very gifted with the language. I seek that, I respect that, admire that. And I hope somebody else is prepared to talk because I'm done.
You know, I think, you have, Indira, you have, and Chip, Indira, you have a tremendous gift. And I've written things and I don't write like you do, not even close.
You
I
didn't have the
mean,
nuns, did you?
I did. I actually did.
Me too, just to
And
chime in, my knuckles are still recovering.
yeah,
See?
yeah. I was gonna
You
say
know what
those
I'm saying?
rulers are not real comfortable. But and I think we have all learned, and I mentioned this last week, we've all learned through COVID a different way of communication, a different way of communicating with people. This particular platform that we're using right now, Zoom, how many people used it before COVID? Not too many, I think. And all of a sudden, with COVID, this is the way we communicated. Also on social media. And I think what a lot of people, and Lihia does this uh, unbelievably well, is the way she has learned how to communicate on social media. It's not the way that you talk to somebody in person. There's different types of communication. When you meet somebody and you're talking to them in person, you're communicating a certain way. Whereas on social media, when you have the written word, it doesn't carry the emotion that it does when you're communicating in person. And so Indira does that so unbelievably well, is having the ability to take you to the place that she wants you to be. Uh, and so, did you want to say something?
It's interesting. I think I agree. My mom's an English literature master's, yeah, a graduate. So, there's a lot of language. There's a lot of good role models and experience from that perspective. Oddly, growing up in Calcutta gives you the Queen's English in some ways. It's one of those odd things about it being a very literary part of India. But I think all of those, I would say, are tools. I think the gift that I've been given in honesty is being very comfortable with vulnerability. I mean, there is nothing that I've told you that you haven't experienced, right? And so why would I feel anything but relief and comfort in being with somebody else who knows my journey? Right. And whether it's cancer, whether it's divorce, whether it's having a tough day at work or yelling at your kids and feeling bad later, right? I mean, the vulnerability is something we need to normalize in this world where we are on such, we won't talk about the world, but the point really is that I think vulnerability has given me freedom. And I know Neil had his hand up earlier, but I will come back to something, another choice I wanted to make, another comment I wanted to make, Neil, but if you wanted to, if if I saw that hand up
No,
earlier.
I'd rather hear from you.
Uh, so this is the other thing that I've, thought about, power versus control. Right? And we talked a lot about control. It doesn't matter when, you know, you can have power even when you don't have choice. And I want to say that again. You can have power even when you feel you don't have choice. You know, the holistic approach, that's a choice. When the medical feels like you're buried under that, that's a choice you have the power to make. So when you hit your wall, head against a wall, and you feel there is no choice, don't forget you have power. And that power is deciding how you want to be, not even react, just how you want to be. And I think sometimes we are our own worst critics. I do a very good job of that. And so one of the lessons that I'm trying to learn, and so I can model for my kids, is being patient with yourself. I am reeling from some of the side effects of the new drugs. Today is the first day since the last cycle, and I have IV treatments for the original cancer every 3 weeks, since 2007. And now we are obviously, we frightened the system a little bit, so we're going to buckle down and put more good drugs in, and then I'm going to go to reflexology and cleanse it all out. But the point is that today's a wonderful day. So when we get those moments of goodness, of relief, of sunshine, that's when you push past the wall and you get to the other side.
Very, very well said. Very, I mean, you are saying so much with saying so little, Indira. I mean, what you
Thank
just
you.
said in there, it's just profound, absolutely profound. And we are so lucky to have you because there's so many intricacies to all of that. And there's so much to learn. And by the way, if you want to re-watch this video, we are going to put this up on our YouTube, on our Facebook page, on the YouTube channel. So, and also
Thank you.
any of the other previous speakers, they are up on our Facebook page. You could check our YouTube channel. It's Cancer Conquering Community, and it's on YouTube, so you can look at that as well. But yeah, thank you so much for. And we have Wanchiku coming in from Kenya, and she's joining us. So we've got a, a number of places throughout the world that we're connecting here. But anybody else have any comments for Indira? Go ahead, Chip.
Well, anytime you get in a group like this, and hardly any, I guess maybe a lot of people know each other. I'm just getting to know the people in this group, but it's amazing how quickly you run into similarities between each other. You know, you don't have to go very deep until you start running into the things that make humans human, and that's super important and refreshing to know. Um, a little bit of something from Calcutta. I haven't spent very much time in India, went across northern India because of agriculture. And in Calcutta, I got to spend one day with Mother Teresa, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
She doesn't have a ruler.
She doesn't.
Like the most famous nun does not have the most famous tool. Um, but for, you know, you talked about power without choice. And for her, and this is probably the ultimate lesson for me from her, love was the power. That's the power she ran on. That's all I
Absolutely.
got.
You know, I have to, with that, what a wonderful way to recognize pure goodness. She didn't have a ruler, but she needed a stool. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. I went to Loreto House, which was a convent, and she was part of the Loreto Order at one point, if I can say that appropriately. Um, and I was one of the Girl Scouts that was organize supporting, you know, cleaning the hall where she would come in and speak to the college. And so I was in the wings on the stage, and you know, she wasn't very tall, right? And all of a sudden you see a lot of activity, but you don't see her. And, you know, everybody's like trying to peer to see her. And this activity is just like moving like at a very furious speed right into the center of the stage. And then everybody's moving back out. And I'm like, what is going on? And everybody's like, well, she needs a stool. She needs a stool. She needs a stool. And she is leading this charge at the back of the stage looking for a stool because when she got to the podium, she couldn't see above it well enough to make the address the way she wanted. And what she found were those very thick phone books, if I remember that correctly, and stacked them up and stood on that. So you create miracles. You know, you sometimes have to just take charge.
What I want to do now is finish recording the video, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're going to continue on, but thank you, Indira. And
Thank
I'd
you.
like to thank everybody watching this. Thank you for joining us at our Cancer Conquering community, and we will be coming to you within the next week or two with another video. So just want to thank everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time, and you can get all of the updates on our Facebook page. So thank you very much.